Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am the Omni viewer, and today I'm here to talk not about Godzilla news, but about the upcoming HELLBOY reboot. The second trailer recently dropped, specifically a red band trailer this time as opposed to the initial green band trailer, and I thought I'd share my thoughts on how I think it's looking. Now if you dig back far enough in my video catalog, you'll see that I was one of the first people to report on the presence of a HELLBOY reboot in the first place. And I noted how the plan, as of that announcement, was to go for something very different from what the original Guillermo del Toro movies were like. This reboot was going to be a darker, R-rated horror film, as opposed to a more traditional, tongue-in-cheek superhero movie. In other words, it was going to be a bit closer in tone to the original comics by Mike Mignola. Now don't get me wrong, I love both of Guillermo del Toro's HELLBOY movies, but I do still realize that as close as they were to the comics, they still made some changes, so something that was a little bit closer to the comics, I was interested to see where that could go. So you can imagine my confusion when the first trailer dropped. You all remember that first trailer, I'm sure. I was going to make a video on it, but other things required my more immediate attention, and eventually it just got to a point where making a video on it wasn't relevant anymore. Though I have to say, based on some of the discussions I had, it felt like I was the only person in the world who wasn't all that thrilled by what I saw. That initial trailer emphasized humor, was full of quippy dialogue, made it look more like an action comedy, and was set to the Monet Monet song. It was pretty much the exact opposite of what you were expecting if you heard that initial dark R-rated horror movie announcement. I couldn't help but wonder, what the heck happened between that announcement and the release of this trailer? Of course, the obvious answer would be studio interference, but at the same time, I couldn't completely rule out the idea that maybe it was just a bad trailer. Or more specifically, a bad trailer for what was initially promised. After all, if the trailer for the most recent Halloween movie had been emphasizing jokes and was set to Elvis singing Hunka Hunka Burnin' Love, that would raise some questions, wouldn't it? Well, the red band trailer dropped on March 1st, and it's better, but I can't really say it's completely assuaged all of my concerns. It leaves no doubt that they've stayed committed to the R-rated part of their initial proposal, but I'm still not entirely sure what we're getting is a darker movie. In terms of tone, it looks to be roughly the same as the first Del Toro movie. Now, based on this new trailer, it does look like it has potential. Sure, on the one hand, characters like Liz Sherman and Abe Sapien are nowhere to be seen, but on the other hand, we've got Ben Daimo. He didn't appear in the original live-action films, or either of the animated films that were made between them. And we also have the knowledge that this is directly adapting a plot from the comics, specifically The Wild Hunt. At least that's what it says on all the reissues of the graphic novel. And the cinematic reimagining of Smoke on the Water feels a bit more appropriate than Monet Monet ever would. Don't get me wrong, I've got nothing against Monet Monet, but it belongs on Star-Lord's awesome mix, not necessarily in a dark horror film. So the second trailer was better, make no mistake of that, but why then do I still feel a certain degree of trepidation? Well, like I said, I still can't quite shake the feeling that there was some studio interference involved. Now, I certainly don't think it's to the same point as Venom got, where it was originally going to be R and then was cut down at the last minute to PG-13. Clearly they're not going to do that if the Red Band trailer is any indication. But it still feels like this wasn't quite in line with what was originally proposed. Compromises were clearly made. In particular, the kind of compromises Todd McFarlane will have to make if he ever wants that second Spawn movie to materialize. No matter how I look at these trailers, they do not look like horror films. And having read those original HELLBOY comics, I can tell you, they could get pretty creepy at times. There was action, sure, and there was humor, but there was also some really heavy atmosphere and occasional dabblings into the realm of the supernatural that just made you feel uncomfortable when you really thought about them. It's good stuff, but it's not necessarily the kind of stuff a movie studio wants, especially when they're looking to make a shared universe. And never forget, this movie is intended to launch a shared universe. Did you notice how in both trailers we see the BPRD logo before we see the title of the film? That's because they want to make that shared universe, and that symbol is their calling card. And again, I'm not opposed to that idea. I like shared universes. I'm currently writing my own shared universe. And in the comics, Hellboy did indeed launch a shared universe. Titles like BPRD, or a solo Abe Sapien series, or spin-offs for Lobster Johnson. Even minor side characters wound up getting their own books. But in order to have a successful shared universe, you gotta have a successful opening act. More to the point, it has to do better than the last two Hellboy movies did. Never forget that for as good as Del Toro's Hellboy movies are, they underperformed financially. So while I understand why the marketing for this film is reminiscent of a Marvel movie, my concern is how that mindset applies to the film itself. The last time a studio took a franchise that was steeped in horror and tried to make it into a Marvel knockoff, we got the 2017 version of The Mummy. Now, I don't want to believe that's gonna happen. It's quite possible these trailers aren't properly representing the film. That has happened before. In fact, this once again feels kind of reminiscent about how I felt regarding Godzilla 2014. I was really concerned about the first trailer, then the second trailer filled me with a bit more confidence that maybe it would be good. I will give the movie a fair shot, make no mistake, but I still am recognizing certain warning signs. At the end of the day, all I ask is that it be good. After all, Hellboy is fairly different from your average comic book property. This isn't as safe a bet as making a Batman movie, so I realize Lionsgate is taking a bit of a risk in rebooting this series to begin with. I'm just hoping that the right decisions were made. If we're not gonna get Guillermo del Toro's third Hellboy movie, we need to have something just as good or better to justify that loss. So we will see what happens. But those are just my thoughts on what the trailers look like so far. You can feel free to leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it, as well as subscribe to the channel for more content of a similar nature. Also, check the description for links to our Twitter, DeviantArt, and Patreon pages, as well as the Amazon link for the novel Operation Red Dragon: The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, penned by yours truly. Thank you all, and we appreciate your support.